Hello coders, this is Jared with Renaissance Coders, and this is a fairly impromptu video here. This video is being created to help one of our community members who is having a little bit of difficulty with one of their games. We were unable to find an easy solution through our Discord chat, but I was able to find a solution a little bit later. So I have created a really simple 2D game here that will randomly instantiate some objects that will continuously fall unless our platform comes into contact with them. This is not an overly polished game. Instead, this is more of a rapid prototype designed to help our community member out. So let's just take a quick look at the game that I've created. So as we can see, we've got these purple balls falling, and I've got my blue platform that I can just move around with the W, A, S, and D keys, and I can catch the balls and add to my score. You may have noticed that the score increases differently based on the platform's position on the screen. So if we are below a certain point, we get more points. So below a certain point, we get 5 points. Above that point, we only get 1 point. Okay, cool. Okay, so the main issue that our community member was running into involved adding an increased score value based on where the falling object was actually captured. Basically, the community member wanted to reward more points if the ball was caught towards the bottom of the screen. So I created a quick script to help us handle this, and as you can see in our demo there, this is actually working. Before we get into this though, I did want to point out that I will be adding a link to this project on GitHub in the description below in case you coders want to check it out. Now the first thing that I want to do is actually review the catcher and game manager scripts for this game. They're not very long and they're fairly simple, but I did want to go over them just so everyone knows what we're doing. So let's go ahead and go into our scripts folder and open up all of our scripts. Okay, so the first script we're actually going to take a look at is our game manager script. And as you can see up top, we just have a couple of variables that we need to spawn an object, and we also have a screen width and a screen height variable and a screen to world position vector here. We are also getting a reference for the UI text and an integer value for our score. In the start function, we are just invoke repeating our spawn ball function, which just instantiates our spawnee, which is the ball, at a random position. And the random position is actually based on the screen width, the screen height. Then we are just transforming the screen width and screen height to a point in our world using a new vector 3, a random dot range between 0 and the screen width, the screen height, and a 1 for the Z index. Finally, we're just returning this screen to world position to our instantiate function here. The last thing inside of this game manager script is our increase score. Very simple. All we're doing is increasing the value of score here, and then we're updating the UI text object. So this is actually a very simple script, but this random position function here is actually pretty cool. So you guys may want to check that out a little bit later on GitHub if you get the chance. Now let's actually take a look at our catcher script, and this one is actually really simple, and I don't actually need my start function here. All this script is doing is getting some input and then translating our position based on the input. If we are pressing the A key, then we translate our position to the left. The D key moves us to the right, W up, S down. And of course, we're multiplying that by our time.delta time and our speed variables. Okay, so finally, the last thing we need to take a look at is our ball script. And this one is a little more complex, but it's not that complicated. Okay, so up top, we just have a speed variable for how quickly our ball should drop. We have a reference for our game manager script. Then we have two basic just storage variables, one that stores our basic score reward and the other stores our special score reward. Then we have a couple of private variables, a vector 3 for our screen height, a float for our current screen height, another float for our score multiplier ratio, and then a float for our max score multiplier. And looking at these variables again, some of the names don't make a lot of sense, but that's okay. I will explain what these variables are actually doing inside of our start function. So inside of our start function, the first thing that we are actually doing is getting the height of our screen as a vector 3 by using this screen to world point function here. And basically what this will do is it will take the pixel value and translate it into something that we can actually use in our game. The next thing we're doing is setting up our current screen height, and we're just setting this equal to the screen height dot y, which will be the y-axis, or the screen dot height here. And this just returns an integer value for the pixels of the screen. The next thing we're doing is actually dividing our current screen height by our score multiplier ratio. And basically what I've created here is that we're going to divide by 4 so that only the bottom 25% of the screen will actually award this special score. If we were to divide by 2, then the bottom half of the screen would award the special score. So you can really pass in any value you want here. I just went with 4 because I didn't want a whole lot of area that could get the special score, but I'm sure that you guys can edit this fairly easily. The last thing we're actually doing inside of our start function is we are setting up a reference to our game manager, and we're doing this very simply so that we can call this increase score down here. Now inside of our onTriggerEnter2D, we're just checking to see if the collider that we are hitting is our little box that I have set a tag of catcher on, and if our object's transform.position.y is greater than our max score multiplier, which should be the bottom 25%. So if our position is above that bottom 25%, then we award the basic score of 1. If it's below that bottom 25%, then we award the special score here. And finally, we just destroy this game object if we've hit the catcher. So it is a very simple script, and I'm not even destroying the game objects. If I miss them, I just let them keep going on infinitely, just falling forever. But, you know, again, this is just a really quick prototype. So let's actually go back out to the game screen now, because I do want to take a quick look at how everything is set up inside of our hierarchy and inspector. So as you can see here, we've got our catcher, which is just this small block here, and I'm just using sprites from Unity. So I've got the background sprite set up for my catcher. I've got my catcher script on here with a speed of 2. I've just got a standard box collider on here as well. If we look at our ball, again, it's just a sprite from Unity. This is actually the knob sprite with like a violet or a lighter purple color on it. I've got a circle collider on here that is set to trigger. I've got my ball script with a speed of 5, a game manager reference, and then my basic and special score values. Finally, I've got a rigid body 2D that is set to kinematic here, and that's really all we need on the ball script. The next thing is our game manager, and again, this just has a reference to our ball prefab and then a couple of variables for the spawning and a reference for our text UI. So if we look under our canvas here, we can see that we have a text element. If I go up here, you can see that it's just a very basic text element. It's just a typical Arial font with an initial score string in here. Again, I'll go ahead and press play because it's a pretty simple game to play, and I think that the community member may change up some of this functionality because it's actually easier to catch the balls the farther down you are. But he could also increase the spawn rate here, which would make it a little more difficult. So if I go, I'm still managed to get in the bottom 25%. So there we go. So you can see there that it only increased by 1, but it is really easy actually to catch the balls as they're falling and get within that bottom 25% of the screen. Okay, very cool. Okay, coders, so that's going to do it for this video. Again, it's just a short prototype game that I created to help out a community member. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Again, it's really simple, and don't forget that the link to GitHub is going to be in the description as well, so be sure to check that out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.